This is just a quick update. I only have about 8 more pages left to ink in this little sketchbook. I'm hoping to finish the line art by tonight or perhaps early tomorrow morning. After that, I have about a week's worth of work in the horizontal sketchbook that I've shown before. And my goal is to finish the line art for the 3 sketchbooks on which I've been working by the beginning of July because I want to spend all of July painting all of the pages of these 3 sketchbooks. And I hope to have all that painting done by early August. But anyway, while I'm taking a break, I would like to show you this book, which I've shown before. Last night I read the first half of it. This is a book which was produced by the U.S. Postal Post Office, in 1995, I believe. It was the 100th anniversary of The Yellow Kid, who's sort of considered the honorary first comic strip character. And this book was produced in conjunction with postage stamps, which denoted comic strip characters of the Golden Age, so 1895 to 1940. And so while I'm taking a break, I just wanted to flip through some of these pages. Many of these are comics that I've mentioned before, but some of them I haven't been able to show you in color. And what's really nice about the Golden Age of comics is that each cartoonist had a very distinctive style, and it's a great deal of variety and creativity, which isn't always seen today. Polychromous effulgence is the term that the Hearst newspapers in 1896 used to describe this newfangled thing called color comics. So anyway, let's just take a look. So we have the Yellow Kid, whose creator also made Buster Brown. The Yellow Kid gives us the term yellow journalism. Here we actually have a crossover with Buster Brown and the Yellow Kid, and it's probably a spoof of Little Nemo in Slumberland here. Buster Brown always had a moral, which I skipped reading because, I don't know. The Katzenjammer Kids, I believe I have some Katzenjammer Kids in the Smithsonian Book of Newspaper Comics, which I'll look at eventually. The Katzenjammer Kids, as far as I can tell, were a bit like the Bart Simpson of the 1990s, or perhaps early South Park, in terms of kind of a slapstick youth kind of anarchic comic. We've talked about Little Nemo before. I do have a Little Nemo book and a calendar, so we've looked at some of Winsor McCay's artwork. This is some great design here, where the world is shrinking on New Year's Eve, and then the baby New Year comes. Bringing Up Father. I'm less familiar with this. As far as I can tell, this is essentially the Beverly Hillbillies of the 1910s. In this case, the hillbillies are Irish immigrants, the father being a fan of corned beef and cabbage, and they're nouveau riche, and so the wife is always trying to bring up father up to a new station in life. I do think the penwork here is marvelous. This is the daughter, who is sort of a flapper character. And actually, the fashion and the design in this comic strip, at least from what I can tell, is quite excellent. Crazy Cat. I've talked about George Harriman before. I do have one book of Crazy Cat, but I would like more eventually, because I think there's a lot to discuss here. Rube Goldberg. One thing that's interesting about Rube Goldberg, and we can really see it here in his Sunday page, is that we have not just the invention, but we have something called foolish questions, and then we have sort of some parody strips, and then we have this little bottom strip. And if you're familiar with classic Mad Magazine from, well, the 50s to the present, you'll notice some similarities here, except this is 1914. So in some ways, Rube Goldberg, or at least his contemporaries, created the satiric format which Mad Magazine later ran with. Toonerville Folks. Once again, I really only know about this comic from, excuse me, collections like this, but I do think it has a very unique style, and I would love to find a book of Toonerville Folk and really get into it. Now, Gasoline Alley by Frank King, I believe. This is a comic I would really love to find a collection of and just study it. At least maybe a classic run of the first decade or two, because it seems like it has a lot of interesting elements. It's a continuous family narrative of a sort, and it sort of tells the story of the United States through the story of a family. And it looks like King had some really wondrous design principles. Here, Skelix is playing with a compass, and we see all of these different designs. I will definitely try and find Gasoline Alley, maybe in a used bookstore one of these days. Anyway, that's as far as I read last night. I just really think these classic comics had great design, interesting colors, and they were very unique and in many ways just very diverse and experimental in a way that we don't generally see in webcomics or comic books today. Although, I mean, there's some, but these pioneers were doing some very interesting and very special things. Anyway, I will keep you updated on the sketchbook progress, and I'll certainly let you know when the great painting odyssey begins. Goodbye.